Today I'm making an orange cream Danish. A Danish is considered a type of viennoiserie, which means that it uses a yeasted dough, but it's laminated with layers of butter. So it's sort of a hybrid between a pastry and a bread, and it's actually the best of both worlds. That sounds like it could be a complicated process, but if we take this step by step, you could create this amazing dessert at home. Danishes could come with a variety of fillings, but I'm focusing on orange and cream cheese today because I think those flavors will go really well with the fruit-forward hops in our featured beer for today, New Trail Broken Heels, on this episode of Bacon and Brew. We'll start by making our pastry dough. I'm using 90 milliliters of water, to which I'll add 10 grams of instant yeast. Then I'll dump in 125 milliliters of milk. I'm then adding 500 grams of bread flour, 25 grams of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. Finally, I'll add 2 eggs. A Danish dough is similar to that of a croissant in that they're both going to be laminated with butter. However, Danish dough is a little more enriched with eggs and sugar. I then moved everything over to my mixer where I mix for about 10 minutes until the dough is smooth and passes the window pane test. The dough should feel soft but not particularly sticky. I'll then move it to my counter so I could knead it by hand and form it into a tight ball. I'm just going to fold it over a couple times and roll it around to tighten up the outside. I'll place this into a greased bowl, wrap it up, and refrigerate it for at least an hour. While that's chilling, I'll make my butter block. I'm using 2 sticks of Kerrygold butter, but use any European style butter or an American butter that is at least 82% fat. The fat is what helps create the lamination in the dough, and many of the mainstream American varieties just have too much moisture to achieve that. I'm just trying to roll my butter out into a large square. It is important that the butter stays cold because if it warms up too much, it might melt and get absorbed by the dough. You need to keep it in a solid state to create those distinct layers. I'll then cover this and move it into the refrigerator to keep it cold. After our dough is chilled, I'll roll it out into a large rectangle, large enough to enclose our butter block. I'll then divide our butter into 2 halves and place the first half on the middle third of the dough. I'll fold the dough over it, place the other butter block on, and then fold the final third of the dough over to cover the butter. And now the butter should be fully enclosed with 3 layers of dough and 2 layers of butter. And now we'll cover to chill for another hour, after which it's time to do our first fold. As you can see, the process isn't necessarily difficult, it just takes a lot of patience with multiple rests, making sure everything stays cold. I've rolled out the dough and I'll do a letter fold. Fold 1/3 over and then the other third on top of that. And then I'll just flatten this out a little more to prepare for my next fold. Cover it up and put it in the refrigerator for another hour. And then we'll repeat that 2 more times. Here's the final fold. I'm following the same process for a letter fold by rolling it out and folding it into thirds. The number of layers increasing exponentially with every set of folds. And now back into the refrigerator, only this time overnight, up to 2 days. The next day I'll make my filling using 50 grams of sugar, 8 ounces of cream cheese, the zest of 2 oranges, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'll mix this with the paddle attachment until smooth. Now it's time to shape our Danish. I actually only need half of this. Since it's a 2-day process, it didn't hurt to have a backup. So you should probably consider cutting the dough recipe in half, or better yet, double the filling recipe. Then with 1 piece of dough, I'm going to roll it into a large rectangle. We want it to be about 10 inches by 15 inches. And we want it to be fairly thin. Remember, this is going to puff up a lot while baking. That's the big difference between a recipe like this that uses yeasted dough and a recipe that uses a store-bought puff pastry. And then gently make 2 lines to mark the middle third as a guide so I know where to cut. I'll then make about 1-inch strips all the way down each side. making sure I have the same amount on each side, which is actually easier to lose track than you think. I'm actually going to remove these last couple strips, leaving a little tail at the end. I'm then placing the filling all the way down the middle before spreading it out to make sure it's even. I'll fold that little tail up. That should help prevent the filling from spilling out as it bakes. Then one at a time, flip the strips over, alternating sides so I create that braided pattern. I eventually decided I didn't need the last couple strips, didn't really have anywhere to go with them. Then I just flip that last one over and then seal it. Then make sure everything is even and transfer it over to a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. I probably should have just built it on the parchment paper in the first place. It would have saved me the trouble of moving it. I'll then let this proof at room temperature for about an hour. Just before baking, I'll make an egg wash using 1 egg and a tablespoon of water. I'll brush that over top, which should give it a beautiful glossy golden color after baking. I'll place this into a 400-degree oven for 25 to 28 minutes. If it starts to brown too quickly, just place a piece of aluminum foil over top. And this rose very nicely, picking up that beautiful orangey golden color. Finally, to finish it off, I'm going to make an orange glaze. And I'm honestly not even using a recipe for this. Just a bunch of powdered sugar, the zest of 1 orange, and then I'll slowly squeeze in some orange juice a little bit at a time until I get the consistency I want. I'm always amazed at how little liquid it takes to turn powdered sugar into a glaze, so add sparingly. This is about the consistency I want. I always try to make it a little thicker than I think I need because it always appears thinner once you spread it on the Danish. And now we're just about ready to eat. I just need to drizzle this glaze over Jackson Pollock style. I'm trying to drizzle it over thin and not get any big globs, but sometimes that feels unavoidable. And there you have it, orange cream cheese Danish. Buttery Danish dough with an orange and vanilla cream cheese filling reminiscent of an orange creamsicle. Let me just cut a slice here and you should have beautiful laminations from all that butter. And that fluffiness you get from that yeasted dough really makes the extra effort worth it. And this should go great with a citrusy, juicy IPA like New Trail Broken Heels. New Trail has had an amazing few years. They've been listed as America's fastest growing craft brewery by the Brewers Association. They were also named Craft Brewery of the Year last year by Brewbound. It's easy to see why when they have flagship beers as good as Broken Heels. There was a time when the idea of pairing an IPA with something sweet just seemed completely ludicrous. And I mentioned this previously in my Jamaican Patties episode, where I mentioned that the overall character of IPAs has completely changed. They used to be really bitter, and now we're going for the fruity and juicy character. Broken Heels is a prime example of what a hazy IPA should be. It uses Mosaic and Citra in the dry hop, giving it that really citrusy and tropical fruit aroma. And the mouthfeel is just smooth and creamy. You're not getting much of that bitterness, just a really strong fruit-forward hop aroma. The bright flavor of that orange zest in the pastry filling, along with that fruity hop aroma, really sells this combination. However, the mouthfeel of the beer does a lot as well. That creaminess, I think, goes really well with the cream cheese and vanilla filling, as well as the butteriness of the pastry dough. Thank you for watching. I encourage you to try making Danish pastry dough at home. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and join me next time when I take another one of my favorite beers and try to bake the perfect pairing.